more information, more questions, more charts, more. Today, let's talk about what you can expect from the new Art of Argument edition. They just redid this edition after 20 years, and I just have to say, there's more. But let's talk about what you can expect from this new edition and answer some of your frequently asked questions. So let's get started. Before we jump into the content of the actual curriculum and what changes have been made, let's look at the look of the new curriculum and what changes have been made. The first thing you'll notice is that it's now all in color. This may not seem like a big deal, but it is definitely more engaging for your children, and many of the examples that they show, like the ads that they use to represent the different logical fallacies, are now in color, which makes them more impactful and understandable. They've also made it easier to read and easier to access by breaking up different sections on the page, by making their scripts that they have to introduce their logical fallacies more readable, easier to follow along, as you can see here. And of course, clearer headings that help you to know exactly where you are in the lesson and have natural stopping points. But probably my favorite addition to the curriculum when it comes to the visual aspect is the amount of charts and different kinds of tables and visuals that they have added into the curriculum itself. They've introduced something called the fallacy tree. And with the fallacy tree, it is a simple chart that is going to divide each fallacy into a category and subcategories. Your children are going to be introduced to this chart, and then at the end of the review sections, they're actually going to be filling in that chart. It will build chapter by chapter until it makes an entire fallacy tree, helping your child to easily understand and retain the information taught in that lesson. It also makes a great study tool as your child continues on in the curriculum. But what about content? Is the content different? Or is it just kind of gotten a remodel and facelift? Well, there's actually a lot of content that's different. Let's talk about it. You are still going to cover the same 28 logical fallacies in this curriculum as you did in the older edition. None of that has actually changed, so the core basis is the same. However, the amount of information under each logical fallacy has significantly expanded. Like I said, the book is 50 pages more. You can see the difference here on page 1 through 5 of how the explanation has significantly increased. The creators of this curriculum have been teaching this curriculum for many, many years, and they've brought that knowledge of what could use a little more explanation or giving better, clearer examples, and they've brought that to this new edition to increase the ability for you to reach your child and help them to understand these concepts better. Also, you'll see that they have more questions. So at the end of each chapter, they have little reflection questions. And speaking of review questions, at the end of each chapter is a chapter end review. This area has also significantly expanded. It now includes the logical fallacy chart that I mentioned earlier that will build your tree. So they'll be filling that out. If there are any other charts in the chapter, for the most part, they're going to be asked to refill in that information as well. There are 3 units in this curriculum, just like in the original text, but in each of these units, there is an introductory section. And in the past, it was just one simple introductory page to kind of cue you to the next section. Now units they almost have like a little mini lesson at the beginning of the unit to help you introduce what is coming next, what you can expect, what kind of vocabulary you're going to encounter, and more. There's also more information linked into the text if your child is looking for more examples. Obviously, always use parents' discretion. Work on the internet with your kids or by supervising them, but there is a way to get more examples more readily. They've also made some important changes to the answer key. So in the past, they would have a few pages that would have a question, and then on the very next page, they would have the answers to some of those questions. And it would say, don't peek. It would make it really obvious that you were not supposed to look, but it was kind of going off the honor system, which can be hard and difficult for children who maybe have a tendency to peek, or even for those who are not trying. So now they have separated those completely. Your child will fill out the page at the end of the chapter, and then they will reference at what page in the back of the book you can find that information and those answers. In the back of the book, you're also going to find more additions to the appendix. That has grown as well. There is that fallacy tree there where you can see the great big picture and not just the little individual chunks that you'll see in the student book. And you'll find additional charts as well. So all of this is great, but let's answer your frequently asked questions. Did the videos change? They have an optional supplemental video series that you can purchase alongside the teacher book and the student book. And with these two things, you can utilize those videos to kind of give additional examples of the different fallacies and a little additional teaching. Because the fallacies themselves never changed, they just expanded the amount of information, those videos are still going to work with your new or your old edition. But that brings us to a very good point. What if I have an old edition of the teacher's manual? Can I purchase a new edition, and are those compatible? No, they are not compatible. They have added so many things that they are going to be very different. It's going to be hard for your child to follow along, and there's going to be a lot of questions, again, that are in the student text that are not in your teacher's text. So I would recommend making sure you have continuity between your teacher and your student text. But what if I had all the things already purchased with the older version? Am I stuck? Is this not as good? The answer is no. It is still a fantastic curriculum. You can definitely utilize the older edition if you already have that on your shelf and you want to utilize it. You are not going to miss out on the core information. It is still quality. It was taught for 20 years this way and will still make a great impact on your children in teaching them the basic logic skills. I do think the additions they have made have really improved things, and they have made things easier to consume. And if you haven't purchased either, I would definitely purchase the newer edition. But if you have the older one, you are still going to get a good quality education. Also, some people were asking, with the changes that were made to this edition, does that change the age group that it was recommended for? No, it is still recommended for middle school to high school age group. Coming up soon, I will have kind of more of a look at what a lesson looks like within the art of argument. And eventually, after being able to use it for several months, I will have a review coming out for you guys. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. In the meantime, here's a video you might want to check out.